past 1 a.m. on Capitol Hill, and lawmakers still on the Senate floor debating and voting if witnesses should be allowed. One of the managers, Democratic Congressman Jerry Nadler, making a lengthy argument as to why former National Security Advisor John Bolton should be allowed to testify and why the White House won't allow it.
They will not permit the American people to hear from the witnesses. And they lie. And lie and lie and lie.
Nadler says Bolton has key information as to the connections between the president and Ukraine and the effort to investigate Joe Biden. The president's lawyer, Pat Cipollone, blasting Nadler.
Mr. Nadler came up here and made false allegations against our team.
Cipollone going on to say the Democrats are trying to undo the last presidential election. Jack?
Jill, earlier Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer telling reporters,
we hear a lot of arguments from the president's counsel. None of them directly address why there shouldn't be witnesses and documents.
In Phoenix, Arizona, the 22-year-old mother, Rachel Henry, has been charged with killing her 3 small children. A caution, the court records are graphic.
According to detectives, Henry admitted to smothering her children to death while singing songs to them. The court paperwork also states that her 3-year-old son tried fighting her off while she took the life of her 1-year-old daughter. Hours later, police believe she then killed her 2 other children.
That's reporter Jennifer Martinez of Fox 10 in Phoenix, who reports that police say that Rachel Henry was addicted to methamphetamine. America is listening to Fox News.
Yikes, are those Christmas bills coming in already? Those high-interest credit cards at 16, 18, even 24%? Well, we have a New Year's solution for you. A Bank Pacific personal loan with rates as low as 4.65% to pay off those expensive credit cards. It's easy, it's fast, and it's as low as 4.65% APR.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal credit opportunity lender as low as 4.65%. Conditions apply.
Mesco Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel Tumon is now serving your favorite daily specials. Come one, come all. Enjoy your Monday with that savory caron pica. Your Tuesday with your one and only candied salmon. Stroll by on Wednesday to try that local style oxtail caro. Or Thursday if you're feeling that pan crisp pork belly served over roasted sweet potato mash. And don't forget that misoyaki black cod with garlic mashed potatoes on Fridays. Busy at work and still want your fix? Call us at 969-2652 for your takeout order.
Recapping this hour's Fox News Alert, the Senate continues to debate procedural motions in the impeachment trial. At this hour, they are voting to table a motion by the Democrats to call former National Security Advisor John Bolton as potential witness. Each previous motion has been voted down along party lines. The World Health Organization meets in Geneva on Wednesday to consider declaring a worldwide health emergency over the coronavirus, with 9 dead and more than 400 cases in China and several cases reported outside of China, including one in the U.S. Health and Human Service Secretary Alex Azar says they are watching for more.
We developed a diagnostic test at the CDC so we can confirm if somebody has this. We've educated our healthcare professionals, hospitals, and doctors to be on the lookout for any symptoms so that a patient can be isolated and contained right away.
The secretary appearing on Lou Dobbs Tonight on the Fox Business Network. The patient in the United States recently returned from China and is in isolation. Day 2 of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, about to begin. President Trump speaking on the first day.
The president causing a stir at the annual meeting of the world's rich and powerful in the Swiss Alps. The summit beginning with a focus on climate change. The president attacking climate activists.
To embrace the possibilities of tomorrow, we must reject the perennial prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse.
Among those in the audience, teenage environmentalist Greta Thunberg, who in her own speech moments later said world leaders in action is fueling flames by the hour. In London, Simon Owen, Fox News.
New York Yankees captain Derek Jeter nominated to the Baseball Hall of Fame, missing being a unanimous pick by a single vote. Larry Walker of the Colorado Rockies also inducted. During his last potential year of eligibility, Jeter appeared on 396 of the 397 ballots cast. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
GRMC's Neuroscience and Neurology Department treats a wide spectrum of disorders associated with the nervous system, spine, and brain. Some of the more common disorders include seizures, epilepsy, dementia, sleep disorders, migraine, and stroke, which is one of the leading causes of death on Guam. GRMC's neuroscience team is equipped with the latest technology and the finest neurological doctors. To make an appointment, contact GRMC Specialty Clinics at 645-5500.
Now here's Bob in the traffic chopper. What's up, Bob?
Traffic's at a standstill right now with a guy standing in the middle of the street holding a sign. Let me zoom in. The sign says, "Free the fence."
Free the fence. And what does that mean, Bob?
Not sure, but the guy's out there smiling and waving in short shorts with a weird-looking little hat. He's got a sign in one hand and what looks like, is it? What? It is. It's a bottle of beer in the other.
Oh, no. That's Ray.
Free the fences in your mind with The Ray Gibson Show. Weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on 93.3 The Point.
Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, even in the state of Virginia. So, I don't know if you followed this or not, but the governor of Virginia, a guy named Ralph Northam, who has distinguished himself before, first of all, by going, quote, blackface several years ago, and a photo of him wearing blackface several years ago surfaced, and then he confessed and apologized, and then he said, you know, I don't think that was really me. And then he distinguished himself a little later when he came out in favor of infanticide, saying publicly that if a baby survived an abortion, the baby should be made comfortable and the doctor and the mother would decide what, if anything, to do with the baby. So Virginia is trying really hard to be California, I guess. The next thing they'll try to do is dig a canal between Virginia and San Francisco. So the new governor immediately started out with some very draconian gun control laws. The outgoing Republican legislature paid no attention to them. And now there's a rally of Second Amendment folks in Virginia to protest the governor's approach and the Virginia legislature's approach to draconian gun control measures. So I've got a couple articles here. I got one from Town Hall. I got two from Town Hall, actually. Which one is the better? How about this one? The liberal media totally eats it with their fake news coverage of Virginia's pro-gun rights rally. Virginia Citizens Defense League had their lobby day yesterday. Thousands attended. It was probably the best turnout in years. And that's the key word here, folks, years. The Virginia Citizens Defense League, or the VCDL, has been organizing this for quite some time. But if you check out MSDNC, Mike, that's MSDNC stands for, let me see, MSNBC, Microsoft NBC, right? MSD, Democrat National Committee is what they're trying to say. Now, Rush calls it PMSNBC. I kind of like Rush's description. I think I'll use that. But if you check out PMSNBC, CNN, and other liberal outlets infected with the Trump derangement syndrome, you'd think this was the inaugural Nazi event in Richmond. Yes, this was a crowd filled with white nationalists who were really mutants because they morphed into Asians, blacks, and women. Like the evil chameleons that they are, they mutated into folks who aren't white and that didn't commit any crime. There were No arrests made at the rally. Of course, I'm being sarcastic, the author says. This was never, nor has it ever been, a Nazi gathering. You'd have to snort a ton of cocaine laced with Drano to believe that garbage lie. But the liberal media was at it again, peddling straight fake news about the violence that was to come, because the law-abiding citizens were there making voices heard on gun rights. The Media Research Center's Newsbusters division was there for all the fireworks. How these MRC and analysts don't need mountains of Advil after hearing these lies are something to behold. What were these reports about? Here's some quotes. A week of violence before the rally. Since there was no violence that was ever at the gun rights rally in Richmond on Monday, CBS Evening News apparently decided to make up fake news and claim there was. And fill-in anchor Maurice Dubois began discussing the event. He falsely claimed there was more of a week of violence leading up to the rally. But back in reality, there wasn't. Before he even got the report, and longer still until CBS admitted there was no violence, Dubois used the opening tease of the program to mislead viewers by suggesting rally goers forced Richmond law enforcement to deploy riot police. Tight security, more than 20,000 show up to the protest. Stricter gun laws in Richmond as police in riot gear turn out in force. The latest on Virginia's showdown over the Second Amendment, Dubois purported. And at no point did CBS show pictures or video of these supposedly deployed riot police. CNN and PMSNBC did their part as well about white nationalists descending in Richmond, except they didn't. PMSNBC Live host Craig Melvin needed perhaps the most sympathy given his hour of attacks on those in attendance. Reportedly bashed the event by placing peaceful attendees alongside militia groups and white nationalists to tar and feather it as one of hate with fears of dangerous confrontation. There's a word here, prejudice, that's gotten almost lost here in this era of political correctness. It used to be that we were told, when I was a kid, we were told, prejudice is bad. Race prejudice is bad. And this is what it means. Prejudice means to prejudge someone. Well, he is black, so obviously he's going to be a really good black basketball player. He's Canadian, so watch out for him on the ice. Or he's white, therefore he's a white supremacist and a Nazi and a really bad person. And that's what we're dealing with here. When people who favor the Second Amendment and gun rights hold a rally, prejudice kicks in, and it blinds the people who are watching what this article is describing. PMSNBC colleague Andrea Mitchell also stated that Virginia residents praying today's rally at the state capitol is not a repeat of the horrible 2017 Charlottesville disaster, and suggested that Second Amendment activities were synonymous with those who clashed with Antifa in Charlottesville. The NAACP Sherilyn Eiffel told Mitchell that the Virginia Citizens Defense League organized event featuring weapons of war is at odds with the very essence of what Martin Luther King was by demonstrating violence instead of nonviolence. Filling in for Stephanie Rule, on PMSNBC Live, Chris Jansing fibbed that the several hate groups here protesting on the steps of the Virginia State Capitol, which would be news to the VCDL, and planned speakers like Bearing Arms Cam Edwards, state delegate, and Nick Freitas, and WRVA Jeff Katz, already having hilariously bad, talk much here, hilariously bad morning. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez reluctantly told viewers that thankfully so far it's been a peaceful protest, even though there was lots of concerns about the potential for violence. It's because of the reports like these that locals in the sheer terror of nothing. It's because of reports like these that had locals in sheer terror of nothing. Francis Benavides, I'm very worried, a student at Virginia Commonwealth University said. Benavides, who's studying photography at the 31,000 student public research university, wanted to attend the rally to document it, but having second thoughts after Governor Ralph Northam, a Democrat, declared a state of emergency last week in anticipation of the event. He said credible intelligence indicated that the rally would draw armed militia and hate groups. All my friends are trying to convince me not to attend, Benavides said, adding she was reassured when Northam temporarily banned guns and other weapons from the grounds of the Capitol, and the state Supreme Court struck down the rally organizers' challenge to the order. There's more to it, and I have another article. Maybe I'll read the other one tomorrow, but I think you get the point. If people are advocating one of their constitutional rights, in this case, the Second Amendment, they're obviously bad people. And you must be very much afraid of them, because no matter what it is that they're doing, they're up to no good. So if they want to rally at the state capitol in support of one of those constitutional rights, we've got to stir up the rest of the population. We've got to propagandize this group and say they're militias and they're hate groups. And they're people who are not kind to animals, and on and on and on and on. It's the Democrats, it's the left that wants to do this to people and to punish them for advocating one of their constitutional rights. That's why we start this program. That's why I start this program every day with a respectful reading of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. If everybody isn't free, then nobody's free. If we don't respect all of our rights, then we can't expect that any of our rights will be respected, especially in the climate that exists in Virginia in the times in which we live. There's an interesting demographic in Virginia. Most of Virginia, is pro-gun country. If you've ever been to Virginia, it's a beautiful state. The Blue Ridge Mountains, there's so much beautiful country in Virginia. Nice little towns. I was just there my trip this fall. I spent some time in Lexington, Virginia.
Nice.
Very nice. And Lexington, Virginia is where the Virginia Military Institute is located. It's just a great place to spend a few days. So, most of the folks in Virginia have their heads screwed on right. But the suburban Washington, D.C. area has become populated with folks that really are not Virginians. They live in Virginia. They have Virginia area codes, Virginia zip codes, but they're cut from a different cloth than the rest of the state of Virginia. And guess where this anti-gun rights nonsense has taken root? Yeah, in the D.C. suburbs. And that's why you see so many people, 22,000 people turned out at the state capitol to say, leave our guns alone. I suspect that very few of those folks come from Falls Church or any of the other D.C. suburbs. So that's the Second Amendment for today. You know what, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let's go to Demi McCartney.
Right away, sir. Full power. Demi McCartney.
All right. I know the Post has got a really good editorial today, and I actually brought it along. I forgot it yesterday, but just to make sure, I want to make sure and set the record straight that yesterday, even though I didn't have it, the Post editorial got the coveted blue star, and we're up to 169 blue stars for the Post versus 55 for the Daily News. The Daily News hasn't moved for a long, long time. And today we're going to have a new contender when I get to the card. But this is a really well done editorial. Here it goes. Now isn't the time to substantially rewrite election law. And Real Joe Cruz, you know that Ronald Reagan thing that you use from time?
Yeah.
Get it out of your drawer and have it ready because you're going to need it. Okay? All right. Based on the Guam Election Commission's calendar, only 219 days remain until the primary election in August. In November of this year, Guam voters get to choose a new set of elected officials. After the primary election, the general election will take place in November. Voters will choose Guam's congressional delegate, senators, public auditor, mayors, vice mayors, detainees at the detention. No, I'm just adding that in there. 6 seats on the Guam Education Board and 2 seats on the Consolidated Commission on Utilities. This leads us to Bill 246-35, legislation that proposes to rewrite parts of Guam's election law. Former Senator Robert Klitzkie, an advocate for good and open government, maybe I better read that again. Former Senator Robert Klitzkie, an advocate for good and open government, calls attention to Bill 246-35 as legislation that, if fully unwrapped, actually proposes not 1 but 8 bills. Part of the proposed change would increase fees for filing for candidates for certain positions. Provisions creating this is a quote, a quote from my testimony, which ran in the Post, was it Saturday, Friday, last week, anyhow. Quote, provisions creating a slush fund for a new autonomous election commission, slamming 2 former senators as a means to strengthen party discipline and to pander to government of Guam employees, and among other things, are nicely camouflaged by 13 sections which at least arguably deal with technical election matters, Klitzkie wrote. Klitzkie was referring to Delegate Michael San Nicolas, who defeated longtime Congresswoman Madeline Berdallo in a stunning upset, and former Senator Frank Ogun Jr., who ran as a write-in, a gubernatorial candidate after losing the Democrat primary. Counting write-ins in favor of a specific candidate would be a thing of the past if this proposal becomes law. With the election just months away, it might be prudent to hold off on changing laws that could, even if unintentionally, and that's the comedy part of this editorial. Obviously, the intent of the 3 folks that introduced that bill was quite clear. Senator Tina Rose Munya Barnes, Will Castro, and of course the prime sponsor, Mr. Village Mayor himself, Pito Terlahi. Don't you dare question his integrity. With the election just months away, it might be prudent to hold off on changing laws that could, even if unintentionally, help bolster the chances of incumbents who want to stay in office. The Bureau of Budget and Management Research also voiced concern over certain proposed changes. Making Election Day a holiday means an added cost of $504,000 to the government of Guam, the Bureau stated. Now, a couple years ago, the Director of Administration said it's $811,000. Either figure is way, way too much. And allowing the Guam Election Commission to be fully self-operating, including managing its own cash and how it is spent, $1.4 million in the latest fiscal year would remove checks and balances that have been in place for decades, the Bureau stated. With the election this close, senators may want to restrain themselves from changing the rules. We urge caution. So what do you think of that editorial, Real Joe Cruz?
It's not bad, sir. Not bad at all.
Yeah, now this part about this guy who's an advocate for good and open government, what were you going to say about Ronald Reagan?
Sir, you better get your Ronald Reagan notebook out. While a constitution may set forth rights and liberties, only the citizens can maintain and guarantee those freedoms. Active and informed citizenship is not just a right, it's a duty.
Yes, sir. Okay. So to be informed, everybody out there in our international radio listening audience has got a good knock on that one. You're being informed because you're part of the international radio listening audience at Tall Tales. And being active helps too. Writing letters, appearing at legislative hearings and testifying. If you can't appear and testify, send your testimony in. Copy in the newspapers. Talk to your friends. Talk to your neighbors. If we don't, we're letting bad government prevail by default. Okay, I didn't even mention the Daily News editorial because, frankly, the Daily News, even if it had written a local editorial, which of course it didn't, kind of playing against the stacked deck today. As fair and objective as I am, as impartial and non-judgmental as I am, as much as I bring a really even-handed approach to the decision-making process here on Tall Tales, I was going to give myself the Blue Star.
There you go, sir.
By giving it to the Post.
Good.
Yeah, so here we go. The Post gets the Blue Star today. So down there at the editorial boardroom of the Daily News, there's your clue. Write a local editorial and mention my name in it. You had to have a shot at getting the Blue Star. Of course, first of all, you got to write a local editorial. Okay, so much for that. So we go from there to the card. And this is what I've got on the card for today. I've got Governors Leon Guerrero. Let me repeat that. Governors, not one but two. Governors Leon Guerrero versus the 35th Guam Legislature. This was on the card yesterday as Anna Wanpat Bora versus the 35th Guam Legislature. And then I've got Dan Ho versus Identity Politics. Well, that's a new name for Tall Tales. Dan Ho. And now notice it's Dan, not Don Ho. It's not Don Ho and the Swinging Elise. For you fellas who remember Don Ho back in his glory days. And then I've got Chief Ignacio versus Public Safety. I've got Tall Tales versus the Hell No group. I've got Robert Underwood versus Us, plus Marsh and Punzelon. I've got the Pope versus Trump. and Antonio Gramsci versus Yo. And I got a short break coming up here, and then we'll be right back into the card.
Want to grow your business? Start a new venture? Or stay ahead of the competition? You can. With Docomo Pacific Smart Business Solutions tailored to your specific needs and ambitions, you can do it all. Partner with a network with best-in-class network coverage, state-of-the-art communication platforms, and a team dedicated to providing you with premium support. Call 688-2677 to start your journey to success today. Docomo Pacific Business, delivering your future today.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his SMILE team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So here we are back again, and the first item on the card is Governors Leon Guerrero versus the 35th Guam Legislature. Now, you remember when the legislature passed Bill 259, it was a subject of great discourse here on Tall Tales. There was so much to talk about. One, how Pito stole her bill from Talina Nelson and turned it into something that was unrecognizable. Two, how the bill so obviously pandered to Pito's buddy, Jesse Bloss, by creating a mechanism to temporarily fill Bloss's position during the time he's in jail, and would by allowing the Mayor's Council powers that no other commission or board would even dream of. They could be the judge and jury. They would determine what was a vacancy in the office, and then they would decide who would fill that vacancy. And this is just 10 folks, not too much different from the Jonia bowling team. I probably shouldn't say that. It's probably disrespectful to the Jonia bowling team to put them in that. And it's like the Washington Redskins, you know, Real Joe Cruz.
Yeah, I know, sir. The Jonia bowling team.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Washington Redskins. You know, the folks over there, the identity politics folks are saying, oh, it's really disrespectful you're calling a football team the Redskins. You know, the black skins, the white skins. You can't call them that. I would imagine that the people, they just hate it. So several groups of Native Americans came out and protested the name of that football team. They said, this is so derogatory. This rap that you're hanging on Native Americans, on us Indians, is really, really unfair. We want the owners of that football team to change the name. We don't want to be associated at all with a group of criminals like those in Washington. So maybe the East Coast Redskins would have been all right, or the capital, but not Washington. You know, the Redskins part was okay. It's the Washington part that they really objected to, and I don't blame them. So my apologies to the Jonia bowling team. But it was just a horrible bill. And then Anna Wanpat Bora came out and said, there may be an organic problem here. She didn't say there is. She said there may be an organic problem, because the mayors are in the executive branch, and the Organic Act says that the governor appoints people in the executive branch. She said, I'll do a little bit more research. Now, of course, the question here is when the folks in the legislature, what the folks in the legislature knew, and when did they know it? Did they know that Wanpat Bora had some second thoughts about this, or did they just say, well, we're going to do it anyhow and just see what happens? So when I got to the governor, there wasn't any of this, we're going to review it, we're going to send it to council or anything like that. The governor just vetoed it. And she didn't veto it, according to the news report, she didn't veto it because of its problem with the Organic Act. She vetoed it because she said it impinged on an executive prerogative. And she thinks it's very important that we remember that we have two different branches there, executive and legislation. And I'll give her credit for that. You know, she is the governor, and it's her job to protect the prerogatives of the executive branch, just like it's Donald Trump's job to protect the prerogatives of the executive branch of our national government. So, you know, there's so many reasons she could have vetoed the bill. She could have vetoed it because she could have said, it's a piece of crap. Don't ever send me anything like this again. Vetoed. Or she could have vetoed it on what amounted to a policy basis. And that was good. You know, when you consider that the legislature, in a sense, has a few executive functions, like confirming members of the governor's cabinet is in a quasi-executive function. And the executive has a legislative role. The governor approves or vetoes bills. So if the legislature sends a bill over dealing with how the legislature conducts his business, I think the governor should be very cautious about exercising their veto power. But when the legislature sends over a bill dealing with how the executive, Leon Guerrero handles their functions, then I think she should be really quick on the draw with that veto. So she did the right thing. Good job, Lou. So, and then that's one of the governors, Leon Guerrero, and then the other one, Ray calls Ken Leon Guerrero, the other Governor Leon Guerrero. So I do sometimes, but I just thought it fit so nicely here on the card. So Ken wrote a nice piece for the Post. He says the senators of the 35th legislature had a chance to send a clear and powerful message of support for the safety concerns of the people of Guam, and they failed miserably. It was a simple thing to do. All they had to do was go into Friday's emergency session and pass a bill to allow the residents of Jonia, in the privacy and safety of a voting booth. Is that something that appeals to you, Rojo Cruz?
Slightly, sir.
The privacy and safety of a voting booth?
Yes, that sounds...
Kind of like in enjoying yourself in the privacy of your own home.
That sounds very cozy, sir.
Yeah. Privacy and safety of a voting booth to decide they want to recall the mayor or keep him in place until the election. It also was an opportunity for senators to send a message on behalf of the people that drug smuggling and corruption by government officials and employees will not be tolerated. Considering the number of government officials and employees that have been arrested for corruption, smuggling, or distribution, it would have been a powerful message. And he's exactly right. You know, and I'm going to keep hammering away on this. When we keep pandering to people who have been arrested, let them keep their government jobs. Let them keep the position as mayor. The guy who was selling drugs out of the security booth at Public Works. On and on and on. We had two people who were caught red-handed smuggling ice into Guam on an airplane. We really socked it to them. You know, we made sure that they could go down to Mount Carmel High School and entertain the kids down there. Good role models for sure. And then we let them go back to Hawaii. Both of them had those little bracelets on their wrists that you see people that have carpal tunnel syndrome. Both of them were wearing those little wrist bracelets as they got on the plane, more than likely to counteract the slap they got on the wrist from one of our judges. So we let them go. We had drug dealing inside the prison, aided, abetted, and sponsored by corrections officer, and we let them all go. So we do this, and we keep doing this over and over again. We've got Jesse Bloss, and I've repeated this. I'll repeat it again. An FBI agent, special agent, under oath in open court, lays on all of the things that Jesse Bloss has done. The next day, Pito Terlahi's son, who was implicated in the FBI's testimony, resigns at the Department of Corrections. After all of these things, we still have people saying, Pito saying, well, you know, he's innocent until proven guilty. What about our democracy? And, you know, we keep pandering to these people, not just putting up with them, but actually rolling out a red carpet for them. And then when we're not doing that, the other thing we do is, oh, we've got such a serious ICE problem. What are we going to do about our ICE problem? You know? And the obvious answer is nothing. We're not going to do anything about it. When it jumps right up and grabs us by the eyeballs, we're not going to do a thing about it. So then we go on to back to Ken's article here. His op-ed in the Post. It was an opportunity for senators to send a message on behalf of the people that drug smuggling and corruption by government officials and employees will not be tolerated. Considering the number of government officials and employees that have been arrested for corruption, smuggling, or distribution, it could have been a powerful message. It could have. And then there's a quote here from Lord Acton, British parliamentarian, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And then back to Ken's text. When it came time to debate and vote, not one of the senators, not one, stood up for the people. The Attorney General has avoided getting involved in the situation. Angel Sablon of the Mayor's Council said there was nothing that the Mayor's Council can do. It was not the best moment for the 35th Guam legislature. To begin with, they went into session to vote on a bill to give Jonia residents a choice on how to handle the leadership of the village, only for the process to be hijacked by Senator Jose Pito Terlahi. Terlahi, who, despite a clear and obvious conflict of interest as Mayor Bloss' former employer and his son's entanglement in the legal case with the mayor, to the point he stepped down as his position of the chair on public safety. I remember when he did that. Conflict of interest. Did not recuse himself. Terlahi, rather than recuse himself, amended the bill to the point that it does nothing to remove the mayor or give residents a vote on the matter. All of the senators swallowed the amendments that changed the focus away from the recall and in the end protected the mayor of Jonia. With the amendments and vote, a more ominous message was sent to the people of Guam. Not only will drug smuggling and corruption by government employees, officials and employees be tolerated by the senators, it will be protected. The question of whether Jonia Mayor Jesse Bloss can run his village from a jail cell hasn't been answered. The bill that would have allowed Jonia died on the floor of the session hall. The senators tried very hard to hide behind a very small, quote, fig leaf, close quote. There was no money, but we know better. They tried to hide also behind the, quote, fig leaf of the law that does not allow a special election within 240 days of a general election. But we know better about that too, as they have the power to exempt a recall and special election from that law. We live in a time when our elected senators are serving the, quote, best interests of politically well-connected insiders over the best interests of the residents of Jonia. With the blessings of the senators, Mayor Bloss will continue to be mayor. An acting mayor will be appointed by 10 close friends or associates of the jail mayor who accepted his appointment to the Jonia Municipal Planning Council, not by the residents of Jonia in a recall in a special election. Of course, that isn't going to happen. Well, unless the legislature overrides the governor's veto. And ordinarily, you know, as in my role as the chief political pundit of afternoon FM talk radio, I would say there isn't any chance that they would be that stupid. But I'm not going to say that. Given what they did last Friday, they might even try that. Ken goes on to say, in the interest of public safety, I have a question. Will the legislature require the appointees to the Junior Municipal Planning Council to take a drug test considering the seriousness of the charges of meth-centered corruption charges that surround the Jonia mayor? Will the acting mayor be required to take a drug test for the same reason? These are questions I expect the senators to continue to dodge in a further effort to continue their protection of politically well-connected insiders. It's time for voters to break the vicious cycle and put into power a new generation of public servants. People will be excited and interested in creating something bigger and better for our island and our people than a politically corrupt system of government with too many officials and employees out for themselves at the expense of the people. Yeah, well, nice job, Ken. And once again, I'm going to make an exception that doesn't happen very often because, Ken Leon Guerrero, you got a blue star. So, an active and informed citizenship, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Ken is the epitome of an active and informed citizen. Good job, Ken. Okay, next item on the card is, let's see here. Titano versus, I didn't say that correctly. Let me say it, let me pronounce it correctly. Titano versus Casil. And for those of you who haven't been on, haven't tuned in for the last couple of days, when I make this sound, it refers to the parenthesis sign. Because we have a senator who's trying, I don't know how to exactly characterize this, but she has several names. She is Kelly, which is I had a good friend in high school named Mike Kelly, but it was his last name, not his first name.
Yeah.
And then we have Marsh, you know, and I knew a guy named Marshall, and guess what his nickname was?
Kelly?
Marsh.
Oh.
Good try, Real Joe Cruz. So her name is Kelly Marsh. And then she always puts the word Titano after that. Well, not always, but usually puts the word Titano after that. But Titano is in parentheses.
Yeah.
So rather than say Kelly Marsh parenthesis, Titano close parenthesis, which is just too cumbersome, I have given the authority vested in me as the host of Tall Tales, I have invented a sound rendering of the parenthesis symbol, and a parenthesis sounds like this. Thus, when I'm talking about that senator, I'll oftentimes refer to her as Senator Marcia Titano. So when you hear that, don't sympathize with me because I've got a sore throat or something like that. That's just the Tall Tales convention. So right now, I'm going to take a break, and I'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Cocoa Coffee Company is now available at Circle K. Single origin coffee beans carefully sourced and locally roasted to give you the freshest cup of coffee Guam has to offer. Grab a cup that's brewed every 30 minutes or purchase a bag of the locally roasted whole beans. Flavors now serving: light medium roasted Ethiopia and medium dark roasted Jamaican Blue Mountain. Exclusively available at Circle K. With every Cocoa Coffee Company purchase, a portion of the proceeds will go towards the Cocoa Recovery Program.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, so we're back from that short break, and I've just been taking a peek at some of the Facebook comments here. Let me see if I can find some of the cool ones. Jose Martinez, he's talking about the impeachment. Brad Hewitt is with us from San Antonio, and I think Brad is multitasking. I think he's trying to watch the impeachment proceedings and listen to Tall Tales at the same time. Good call, Brad. And your priorities are correct. Impeachment, Tall Tales, yeah. So he goes on. Let's see. We've got Jose Martinez. House Democrats are incredibly petty. They're pretty much whining like little children at this point. Yeah, okay. And then Jose Martinez says, I have impeachment running in the background, okay? And then we've got, let's see. Tedo says, did USPS cancel mayors having access to community post boxes? Good question. I would expect a resolution, introduced by Pito Terlahi, condemning the post office if they did that. It'd be unfair to the mayors. And then Tedo goes on to say, Minority Leader Senator Tello Taitigui made sure she grandstanded against the recall bill. And then Ishmael poetically says, one body but 15 different voices, none of which are free to make their choices. They all bow down and bend the knee to the queen in the mural with the tree. I decide what happens with the Jonia Mayor. Now 13 lashes and recite the Magahaga prayer. And then the senators in unity would say, "Oh, Mother, the one and only healer, save us from the colonizers and our great deceiver. Bathe us with your motherly divinity and rid our government from masculinity. To you we swear this sacred vow, because blessed and beautiful art thou. Now your attempt at a bill I will veto, because I have more power in my big toe than the legislature ever will. Now silence here and pass my bill." Very good. Very good. And Ken says, a blue star, I'm honored. You are indeed honored, Ken. Very few people who aren't on editorial boards ever rise to the level of achieving a blue star. I haven't even gotten a blue star for all of my excellent work yet. And then Jesse Limpiaco goes on to say, Leon Guerrero Tenorio, 18,081 votes. If the people of Guam want better results, they need to actually come out and vote. I can't agree with that. Can't disagree with that. Jesse. And Denise, Senate has adjourned for the day. Okay, so now all of you that were multitasking can concentrate 100% on Tall Tales. Yeah, okay. So back to the card, and the next item on the card is Hagania Restoration Head. There is absolutely nothing for us to hide. This is Titano versus Casil. And it started out a few days ago when Marsh Titano subpoenaed the Hagania Restoration for answers. And Marsh Titano said she'd asked informally, formally, sent Freedom of Information requests, and now a subpoena, all because she keeps getting the cold shoulder from HRRA Executive Director Lacia Casil. The cold shoulder. Oh, awful. I don't blame her. I don't blame her for just a subpoena. It's too bad we've outlawed bills of attainder here in the United States Constitution. If anybody deserved a bill of attainder, it's anyone who would give a senator the cold shoulder. Wow. That's really shocking. The cold shoulder. And then later on in this same article, this is from KOAM, Marsh Titano says, wait a second here. If documents that they may not even fully reviewed, that were not seen by the board of directors and kept from us, what is all that lack of transparency about? Titano questioned. I find it really shocking that we're here a year later. Now, let's see. One of these articles, Casil said that the reason that they hadn't responded to Titano's request for FOIA request was because the documents were drafts. And the Freedom of Information Act, our so-called Sunshine Law, says that that a government official doesn't have to furnish drafts in the face of a Sunshine Law request. So a Sunshine Law request could say all public records dealing with the finances of the Hagania Restoration Commission. And a response could be, the only records we have are drafts, and those are exempt from the Sunshine Law. And that would be correct. That would be a correct statement of the law. Is it good public policy? Is it the correct thing to do? What does it do for the reputation of the person responding? Oh, no, it's only a draft. You can't see it. Doesn't it kind of suggest that when we draft stuff up, they might be inflammatory, scurrilous, whatever, and we don't want anybody to see them. When we're finished, then we'll clean them all up and we'll pass them along. So we're going to come back to Titano versus Casil right after this big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
This is a Fox News alert. They've called it a day. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Into the wee hours in Washington, the Senate debated and defeated Democrat procedural motions for the impeachment trial. Moments ago, they called it a night.
The trial adjourned until 1 p.m. Wednesday, January 22nd, and that this order also constitute the adjournment of the Senate.
Without objection, so ordered.
As the hours got long, emotions were running high in the chamber. House impeachment manager Jerry Nadler accusing Republican senators of being complicit in a cover-up. Triggering this from White House counsel Pat Cipollone.
Mr. Nadler came up here and made false allegations against our team. He made false allegations against all of you. He accused you of a cover-up.
That caused Chief Justice John Roberts, who's presiding over the Senate trial, to admonish both sides to remember where they are, that they're addressing the world's greatest deliberative body. And one reason it has earned that title is because its members avoid speaking in a manner and using language that is not conducive to civil discourse. The trial scheduled to resume at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. As the coronavirus continues to spread, the World Health Organization meets in a few hours to debate what to do.
A World Health Organization committee is discussing today whether the novel coronavirus should require an emergency declaration. It's spreading rapidly, originating in the Wuhan province of China. A man in Washington state who traveled to China recently is the first confirmed case of the virus here in the U.S. CDC Dr. Martin Cetrin explained they're funneling all passengers from Wuhan who come to the U.S.
This idea of funneling means redirecting, reissuing tickets. So all the arriving passengers from Wuhan would come into the airports that we can surge this capacity at.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal reporting. I'm Jack Callahan. America is listening to Fox News.
Yikes, are those Christmas bills coming in already? Those high-interest credit cards at 16, 18, even 24%? Well, we have a New Year's solution for you. A Bank Pacific personal loan with rates as low as 4.65% to pay off those expensive credit cards. It's easy, it's fast, and it's as low as 4.65% APR.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal credit opportunity lender as low as 4.65%. Conditions apply.
Mezco Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel Tumon is now serving your favorite daily specials. Come one, come all. Enjoy your Monday with that savory carón pica. Your Tuesday with your one and only candied salmon. Stroll by on Wednesday to try that local-style oxtail caro. Or Thursday if you're feeling that pan-crisp pork belly served over roasted sweet potato mash. And don't forget that misoyaki black cod with garlic mashed potatoes on Fridays. Busy at work and still want your fix? Call us at 969-2652 for your takeout order.
Recapping this hour's Fox News alert, the Senate has adjourned for the day after hours of debating procedural motions in the impeachment trial, tabling, among others, a motion to call former National Security Advisor John Bolton to testify, and finally approving the rules for the trial, which resumes at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. A throwback to an earlier impeachment effort, Thomas Railsback, an Illinois Republican congressman who helped to draw up the articles of impeachment against President Nixon in 1974, has died at his home in Mesa, Arizona, where he'd been living in a nursing home recently. Congressman Railsback died a day before his 88th birthday. Of course, President Nixon resigned, stopping his impeachment. Defense attorneys revealing their strategy in another high-profile trial.
Harvey Weinstein's defense team will be allowed to refer to what they say are dozens upon dozens of loving emails that women sent him after he allegedly assaulted them during his criminal trial's opening presentation. New York State Supreme Court Judge James Burke ruled that the references will be allowed as part of the defense strategy, but his attorneys will not be allowed to display the actual emails. The 67-year-old former movie mogul faces 5 charges of sexual assault allegations by 2 women related to incidents in 2013 and 2006. He says all sex was consensual. If convicted, he faces life in prison. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
A young mother in Phoenix has been charged with killing her 3 kids Monday. Court records say 22-year-old Rachel Henry smothered her 1-year-old daughter, 3-year-old son, and 7-month-old daughter. The motive not clear yet, but police say Henry is addicted to meth. A death sentence for a Southern California man convicted of killing his business partner, his partner's family. Prosecutors say Chase Merritt killed Joseph McStay and his wife Summer in 2010 and hid their bodies in the Mojave Desert. However, California hasn't executed a death row inmate more than 16 years. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Hi, welcome to this ad for new Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. How do you want it?
Cheer Squad. Woo! Go Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. Woo! Give me a ham and jack slider.
Ham and jack slider.
Give me an Italian spice slider.
Italian spice slider.
What's that spell?
It doesn't really spell anything.
New Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. Go sliders!
Subway, make it what you want.
Live the balanced lifestyle. Take Care Insurance offers proven wellness and fitness programs to encourage individuals and families to live a healthy, balanced lifestyle through preventative care, being active, eating right, relaxing and unwinding, and being socially connected. They have the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs for all ages. Join the movement. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram or visit takecareasia.com to learn more.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
You know, Real Joe Cruz, I wouldn't be surprised if people that play in the Boston Pop Symphony Orchestra tune in to Tall Tales every afternoon at 1700 just to hear that 1812 overture.
Yes, sir. I'm positive they listen.
Yeah, I can't blame them. It's done so well. Okay, so we're back to Marsh versus Casil, and this story in today's paper. Executive Director Lacia Casil says it's a regrettable miscommunication. There is absolutely nothing for us to hide, she said, but Oversight Chair Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano said Casil has been stonewalling. Boy, first it's a cold shoulder, then it's stonewall. It sounds like stuff I'd say, Real Joe Cruz.
I agree, sir.
Stonewalling for more than a year now over the planning and design documents. Casil counters that they're still scheduled for board review in the upcoming quarter. And let's see, maybe I've got Kelly Taitano. No, it's Chris. Good afternoon, Chris.
Good afternoon, Sir Bob. I'm wanting to request permission to depart this subject for a moment to talk about the impeachment sham.
Well, all right, go ahead. So ordered.
Thank you, sir. I've been watching with intrigue, probably like some or many of your international radio listening audience, the impeachment sham and the trial of President Trump in the Senate. And the reason why I wanted to call you, because I just wanted to ask you a legal question eventually, but just kind of give an observation first. You know, what's been interesting is all these amendments being proposed on the floor seem to be an effort by the House to go in and try to retry their case and attempt for a redo of things that they failed to do, or the ability to make a compelling case to begin with, to try to make a sham in the Senate. They were all shut down by all of one vote by party line unanimous votes. And then the final resolution to actually get to the merits of the trial was passed, and it just closed recently. So it looks like we're going to actually move on to really the meat of what's going on. I think half of the reason why Shifty Schiff and many of the managers have tried to do this is because they're up against a high burden and a hurdle with the dream team, legal team of the president going in. Not to mention probably the fact that the Democrats are horrified that Alan Dershowitz, a pronounced Democrat who voted for Hillary Clinton, is probably going to take them to the cleaners when he represents that this is absolutely a horrible case, and that both of the, basically both of the accusations brought before the Senate in the impeachment do not reach anywhere near this impeachment sham.
Yeah, and Chris, it's interesting that Dershowitz says that he's not defending Donald Trump. He's there to defend the United States Constitution.
And I think that's absolutely right. I mean, if anything that we see, both national government or local, and I think we've talked about this many times before, is, and you've even acknowledged a compliment today from the chief executive here for rejecting a proposal to basically erase the powers of the executive. That's been done a number of times, and that speaks to the institution, not to the personalities or not to any personal differences. And exactly right. Alan Dershowitz is not going to go in there to argue that I'm here as President Trump's guy. He's there to argue the fact that this is a horrible precedent and a horrible road to go down because it basically could essentially erode our republic, and because a switch of power in any direction could take this type of of really not meeting the framers threshold for going through with impeachment, to really basically just a quagmire of constant impeachment. In fact, some in the House, Maxine Waters and others, just say, "That doesn't matter. We're just going to keep going. If this fails, we're going to be the impeachment Congress." But I wanted to ask you this legal question. One thing that's been perplexing me, Bob, is they keep saying on the manager's side that, and this is being argued, in the national media, particularly on Fox, I think eloquently, is the issue of the reason why they didn't call a lot of these witnesses in the House is because it was going to get tied up in legal maneuvering, and it would be designed to preclude these individuals from ever really testifying or being brought before the committee, and it would go past the election, so you wouldn't be able to have the effect or the affect or get to the merits of what they're trying to say with calling these witnesses, such as the president's staff and others, fired staff, John Bolton and the like. Now the argument against that was, wait a minute, no, the Supreme Court and all courts and appellate courts, when they understand the weight of the issue, have that power to expedite these cases and get these things done, so that it does not do exactly what they're saying would take place. I mean, is that a solid argument?
The second part is, and let me speak on that a little bit, Chris. The House is kvetching because Trump didn't comply with their subpoenas, and we're back again to the executive protecting the prerogatives of the branch. For instance, somebody like John Bolton, the president's security advisor, has to have the ability to speak very candidly with the president and not run the risk of being summoned into a public proceeding where he has to lay out all of this stuff. So the interest of the president in protecting what's called executive privilege is extreme. back in the Richard Nixon times, Richard Nixon refused to turn over the famous tapes. And that case, from the very beginning, through a decision by the Supreme Court, took 3 months. And in deciding that case, the Supreme Court said, yes, there is such a thing as executive privilege, and kind of went into what I just said. However, nothing that the president has said here would cause us to find that executive privilege would prohibit him or would allow him to not turn over the tapes to the Senate. And that's when Nixon resigned. But the takeaways there are, yes, there is something called executive privilege. Yes, the Senate or the House can enforce its subpoenas by going by the judicial route, and it can be done in 3 months, start to finish.
Right.
So that really kind of destroys the Democrats' argument. They horsed around with it for so long.
Sure.
And then they're saying, well, we didn't have enough time.
Hey, I wanted to make another point on this just to kind of close the loop. Bob, I don't know that this would be practical, but it seems to me like if they really wanted these people, they would have at least tested the system and said, let's call them, let's see what happens. Do we get entangled in the courts? Because it would seem to me that any party can withdraw at any time if they've tried to take a case through the court system, right?
Yeah.
And if they withdrew it, then they could make a more compelling case on the Senate floor saying, we tried this. This is what we thought we were up against. The roadblocks seem inevitable, and that's why we're asking you to do it.
Yeah.
But they didn't even make an effort. It's like this whole foregone conclusion was just basically to see if they can maneuver themselves to retry the case up front and not have to go to the merits straight away, and also see if they could just bloody up potential senators that are stuck in tough races within the states as hope to change the Senate.
There's an old saying as far as criminal prosecutions are concerned, Chris, and that is that sometimes the process is the punishment, just going through the whole criminal justice system,
Sure.
And I think that that's perhaps one of the things that motivated the Democrats. Even if we can't impeach him, he's going to be a big loser because we're doing this. So that's a good reason in itself to do it. Not that we have any idea that we can prevail, but just the process will punish him.
Well, we'll see what happens going forward, but I was glad to see that at least it looked like we weren't even going to make it through these proposed amendments. But now that the framework has been adopted, we're going to get to the meat of the case. I don't know. I guess just because I'm a junkie for this stuff, I picked up a couple of hours of it here and there. But I can't imagine that unless people who have already made their minds up and just wanted to watch it to prove it to themselves, I can't imagine anything thus far has been compelling enough to change the mood of those who would be sitting on either side. And I don't know. In my opinion, they're going to fail in this thing.
Well, you start out with the proposition that the Constitution, Article 2, Section 4, tells you what you need to impeach a president or any other civil officer. And I'll read it, and then I'll tell you how the Democrats have rewritten it. It says, the president and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Now, at the time the Constitution was drafted, legal minds were working with the English common law. There wasn't any American common law, obviously. So the English common law was kind of like the lens that people looked at things through. So at that time, there were felonies and misdemeanors. Misdemeanors were serious crimes. But what this section means is that conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. In other words, you'd have to accuse the president of treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors, and then before the Senate prove that he committed those crimes.
Right.
But they didn't accuse him of treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors.
Correct.
So, in effect, the Democrats have rewritten Section 4 of Article 2 to read like this. The President and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, other high crimes and misdemeanors, or a crappy personality. and that's their basis. We don't like the guy. He's got a crappy personality.
Right. And it's so, once again, just to tie this up, I can't help but concur with that simply by the actions that they have taken. You would think, and you being a judge and having practiced law, you would think, as the Democrats and the managers have mentioned time and time again, that they got this airtight, solid case, that they wouldn't have gone through this entire exercise that they did today to try to muddy the waters and change the rules of the game in terms of how they were going to proceed and retry it. They would just simply bring their case forward to prove it and move swiftly on that. But it seems to me that absolutely what you've just said, we don't like him. We found a couple of things that we thought we could tie to him, and good enough. Let's see where it goes. But I think it's, in my opinion, I also appreciated the fact that the lawyers for the president, I think, didn't take the bait. They didn't do the full hour of rebuttal and put up videos and everything else, because I just believe they know that their case is so strong on the merits that why sit there and retry what was already done in the House and basically just drag this thing out when they really want to get to the merits.
I agree, Chris. So we can talk. We can talk about impeachment anytime you want to.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'll enjoy the rest of the show. Have a great day, Bob.
Okay, Chris. So there's an old saying about the country lawyer tells you how it works in trials, and in effect, this is a trial. The country lawyer says, when the law is against me, I pound on the facts. And when the facts are against me, I pound on the law. And when both the law and the facts are against me, I pound on the table. And in effect, that's what the Democrats are doing right now. They're pounding on the table. Okay, so let's come back. We'll leave Washington, D.C. and come back to Hagatna and the Hagatna restoration, whatever it is called. And I found this quote here. Casil counters that they're still scheduled for a board review in the upcoming quarter, talking about some papers. And then she says, by law, working draft documents are exempt from FOIA requests, Casil said. We weren't not going to submit them to her. We just wanted more time for the board to review them. As a catchy double negative there. We weren't not going to submit them. Or we were not going to submit them. That's a hard one to follow. So, a little school, Law and Order notebooks there, Real Joe Cruz. A little school on the Sunshine Law, or our FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. There is a section of the law that says that it is not necessary to turn over certain documents. In other words, certain documents don't have to be turned over. But there's nothing in our law that says you can't turn over the documents. There are no prohibitions. So when a public official says, I'm not going to turn this over because I can't, that public official is either telling you a lie or doesn't understand the law. Not long ago, I don't remember what the context was, but the governor's director of communications, Janela Carrera, said was dealing with the mayor, the director of Parks and Rec. She said, we are barred from turning this over because it's a personnel matter. You're not barred from turning anything over. The law allows you to not turn things over, but it's your decision not to turn it over. And that would be the case here. The law does not say you cannot turn over a draft document. It says you don't have to. But wouldn't the better course for any public official, when that public official is dealing with a sunshine law request, to err on the side of openness and transparency and come back and say, even though the law would allow me to withhold this, I'm not going to. These are draft documents. They have not been approved by the board, but I'm sending them along to you for your information since you are the chair of the Oversight Committee. That would probably do a lot for Kelly Marsh Titano shoulder. You know, she probably had to sit around for several days with a heating pad on her shoulder after Lassia Casil had given her the cold shoulder. And then I don't know how hard she was moving when she ran into that stone wall. But anyhow, that's what you could have done, Lassia. And I did not watch last night's oversight hearing. I heard some clips from it. I think it was kind of heated, and I suspect that tonight's TV news and tomorrow's print media will cover it, and I'll have more to say about it then. So I don't blame a senator for getting after a director or a public official for not being open and transparent. If a senator should never, ever have to send a sunshine law request. A senator should just be able to call up and say, can you send this? And that should be it. Yeah.
They should reach out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Pardon, I'm sorry. Oh, how silly of me. I'm so 20th century, real Joe Cruz, you know. I'm just incorrigible, right?
Yes, sir.
A senator should reach out. So Kelly Marsh Titano should have reached out to Lassia and said, can I see those drafts? And Lassia could have said, yeah, I'll let you see them. I'd really appreciate it, though, if you know, because they are drafts and they're subject to change, let's just, you know, let's just let me send them to you for your information, and that's all. So that's all a senator should. A senator maybe doesn't even have to reach out. Maybe just ask for them.
Yes, sir.
But when I read in the paper that a senator had to send a sunshine law request to somebody in the executive branch, boy, I don't know. And that sunshine law, of course, is an extremely valuable tool, and it can be very costly for people who don't understand how important it is. I would refer you to Michael Bora could probably tell you a little bit about how much it costs, as could Steve Ignacio, because they both wound up with $1,000 fines for disregarding the law. So I don't know. It's sad that we're having this conversation, but it's necessary. So I'm going to be watching this with an eagle eye to see where this goes. Titano versus Casil. Okay, next item on the card is Dan Ho versus identity politics. Dan Ho used to be a media type. I don't know the guy. I don't think I've even ever shook or howdied with him, but he does write a column for the Post. And he had a pretty interesting column today. I'm going to read the beginning of it. He says, Academy Awards season, and the title of this card item is Dan Ho versus Identity Politics. Academy Awards season always volumizes self-victimization. Now, there's a good term, self-victimization. And of course, in the woke era of years of the 21st century, if you're not some kind of a victim, you're never going to go anywhere. So you got to work hard and become a victim if you want to be a success. Victim because of your sex, your race, your sexual preference, your height, I don't know. But you got to be a victim, and you got to name your oppressor and be able to describe why you've been marginalized. And if that's the case, then people will give you good things. So Academy Award season always volumizes self-victimization. Consider the comment made by author Stephen King, who is a member of the Academy, votes annually for his choice of winners in writing categories. Stephen King, pretty successful. And this is what Stephen King said. I would never consider diversity in matters of art, only quality. He tweeted that. It seems to me that to do otherwise would be wrong. So this is the tweet that Stephen King sent out. I would never consider diversity in matters of art. It seems to me that to do otherwise would be wrong. The fury immediately ensued. Among the many who tweet back is the successful black female Hollywood director Ava DuVernay. And she says, when you wake up, meditate, stretch, reach for your phone to check on the world, and see a tweet from someone you admire that is so backward and ignorant, you want to go back to bed. Well, Ava, if that's the way you feel, you should go back to bed and stay there. Another black female successful New York Times best-selling author, Roxane Gay. Boy, you talk about a 21st century name, huh? Roxane Gay. Casts her stone at King, quote, as a fan, this is painful to read from you. It implies that diversity and quality cannot be synonymous. They are not separate things. Quality is everywhere, but most industries only believe in quality from one demographic. And now, here you are. This is a small taste of the hell Stephen King takes for his position. People cannot fathom that he can discuss the likes of Lupita Nyong'o, Jennifer Lopez, and other millionaire entertainers from deserving an Oscar nomination. How dare he be so racist? Eventually, King would issue this statement. As a writer, I am allowed to nominate in just 3 categories: Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Original Screenplay. For me, the diversity issue, as it applies to individual actors and directors anyway, did not come up. Bad, bad, bad.
How dare you?
Exactly. So, okay, we'll go to the 7th inning stretch, and we've got. I want to make sure we have plenty of diversity for the 7th inning stretch.
Rent, lease. What does Horizon do for you? Here's a clue. Advertising, marketing, screening, inspecting, instructing, leasing and signing, collecting and complying, inquiring and assessing, coordinating, repairing, renewing, enforcing, evicting, moving, cleaning, rekeying, communicating. Do it yourself and you'll find it taxing. We work hard to keep the vacancies low, so at the end of the month, you collect the dough. Proven and trusted. Horizon Properties. We do it all. 777-7792.
How do the world's best managers behave differently from the rest? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, I'll explore some ideas on how to ramp up your game to make it work for your organization, for your team, and for yourself.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mescla. Mescla Restaurant in Agotna is closed for improvements and will reopen on the 27th of January. You can still get all your favorites at Mescla Bistro in Tumon on the first floor of the Grand Plaza Hotel. Favorites like SoCal-style 2-pound surf and turf burrito, tasty strips of certified Angus beef, and succulent shrimp rolled into a flour tortilla with red rice, guacamole, cilantro lime sour cream sauce, salsa fresca and cheese, served with a spicy roasted chili salsa for only $17.95. Try it today. Available at Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
So, seventh inning stretch for our entire diverse audience out there, international radio listening audience. So this is a pretty interesting column here. So I'm going to just hit the last part of it again. Eventually, King would issue this statement. As a writer, I am allowed to nominate in just 3 categories: Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Original Screenplay. For me, the diversity issue as it applies to individual actors and directors anyway did not come up. And then Dan Ho says, and there you have it. Yet another honest, benign opinion gets twisted into a bigoted quagmire. How dare he? How dare he? To borrow a page from Greta Thunberg's book. How dare he?
I like that phrase.
Yeah.
I use it a lot these days.
Good for you, Real Joe Cruz. So, you know, when he had 3 votes individual, he could vote for Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Original Screenplay. If he were really into the times, he would have picked, you know, a lesbian for Best Screenplay. And Best Picture would have gone to someone that had actors. The majority of actors would have been people of color. And the Best Original Screenplay, I don't know, whatever's left over. So this is classic. You know, the criticizers are a classic example of identity politics and postmodernism. So nowadays, we're not interested in success, facts, or the truth. The background of the people involved and their feelings are what postmodernism is all about. So if you were to take this a little farther, the next time you fly, the next time you get on a plane to fly to Honolulu or Tokyo or wherever, don't ask dumb questions like, what time does the flight get to Honolulu? What are the menu options, etc.? What you have to ask is the flight crew diverse? Is it racially and sexually and whatever else, is it diverse? And if the answer is no, don't get on that plane. Don't you dare get on that plane. Because we don't care about stuff like competence or facts, etc. We're only interested in diversity. All right, let me see who I got on the phone here. Dr. Tom Poole. Wow, what a great day this is. Hello, Dr. Poole.
Yes, Good afternoon, Judge. Judge, you just you really pushed all my buttons with this last thing, because I am equally outraged at Stephen King because he has a history of not considering altitude, height, and I knew you would be sympathetic that no one ever considers us. You know, there's. When was the last time you saw an acrobat that was 6'4" or 5"? It just never happens, and no one cares.
Yep.
And it's just it's outrageous. And I have always identified as a Munchkin my entire life. No one has ever given me a chance in The Wizard of Oz, and they never will.
No diversity, Tom.
None at all, and no one cares.
Well, I have to tell you this. I care because when Hank Johnson, you remember Hank Johnson, the one, the guy who was afraid to go on. Yeah. Well, Hank Johnson criticized President Trump for being too tall.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. So when President Trump met the president of Ukraine, he intimidated him because he's so much taller. So right then, I planted the seeds for a new group called the Popular Front for the Liberation of Tall People.
Well, I'm right there with you, Judge. I'm ready. I mean, we need to take to the streets with this.
People just don't understand. You know, airplane seats are too small. Japanese cars are too small. I can't go into a regular shoe store and buy shoes. I got to go to a freak shop to buy the extra large sizes.
Japanese houses are too small. My wife's Japanese. When I'm over there, I mean, I almost have to wear a helmet. It's tragic, and somebody has to do something about it.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know when the next chapter of the Popular Front for Liberation of Tall People meets, and as a matter of fact, I felt so strongly about this that I decided to allow my inner self to come out. And I said on the air, I said, from now on, I want to be I feel more like a short person than a tall person. So if you run into me at King's or someplace downtown, please call me Shorty.
Okay, Judge. Thank you for letting me vent my spleen. I feel a little better.
Well, it's good to know that somebody else feels the same way I do. Thanks for calling, Tom.
Thanks, Judge. Bye.
As another, boy, us tall guys, we really take it. Okay, so I got another call coming in here. I guess I finished with that was very nicely done, Dan Ho, to point that out. Okay, and then next I've got Rudy, Paco, and Pedro versus what's his name, Wayne Pacell and Dale Alvarez on the card here. And I've got another one for Paco that I'll get to tomorrow. And I talked about this a little bit yesterday. Mayor Rudy Paco of Mong Mong Toto Mighty received a copy of an anonymous letter seeking support for a petition to reverse the ban on cockfighting. So this guy really knew what he was talking. Whoever did that letter really knew what he was doing, because he didn't sign the letter. He wanted people to pay attention to it. So he sent an anonymous letter. Okay, let me just stop talking here for a second and let me listen to another Joe. Now, this is not you, Real Joe Cruz. This is another Joe. And then after that, I've got our Carl. What can you tell me, another Joe?
Okay, Bob, how many anonymous signatures do you think you can collect? I can't puzzle by that. You think maybe it's already filled up?
I'm sorry, you're kind of breaking up. Could you repeat that, another Joe? What you just started over?
The petition that's being circulated. How many anonymous signatures do you collect? Do you think they have already got it filled up?
Yeah, I think if you wanted to recall the mayor of Jonia, you'd need something like 500 signatures of anonymous people.
Yeah.
If they actually signed it, you'd need a lot more.
I think you use their pen names like Sojourner Truth or What was Ben Franklin's pen name? Do you have more than one?
Ben Franklin's name?
I think it was his pen name. Was it Sojourner Truth?
It'll come to me. I can't remember right now. Another go.
Well, actually, the reason I was curious about one of them was, do you suggest then that if people don't want mayors for respective villages or any villages, should they not vote for mayors, or should they go ahead and vote since there's an option to vote for mayors?
Well, I suppose as long as we have them, the best thing to do is choose the least worst. And you'd have to vote.
The theory would be if by some miracle they end up to be great, then they would actually stay busy 24/7 and make themselves useful, that we wouldn't want to get rid of them, right?
That's true. Yeah, you know, for politicians, here's a tip, politicians, no matter what office you've been elected to, the best way to be reelected and to stay in office is to do a really good job at what you got elected to do. That doesn't occur to a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel about the governor vetoing the legislation? Do you think that she should have perhaps sent some advice before, as one of her first moves, or do you think she was just playing it safe by waiting until the legislature made the first move?
No, I don't think that she should have done anything any differently than what she did. For once, I'm going to be in praise of Governor Lulian Guerrero. She did the right thing for the right reason. So if a bill is pending before the legislature that deals with the executive branch, then certainly officers in the executive branch can go and testify on the bill. But the governor should probably kind of politely keep her distance from the legislative process ordinarily. So she waited, and then, of course, there was no way she could have had any role in what happened because the bill that was introduced was hijacked on the floor by Pito Terlahi, and she really didn't have a crack at it until after it was passed. And then when it came to her desk, she didn't say she vetoed it because it violated the Organic Act. She said she vetoed it because it impinged on the prerogatives of the executive branch. And she thought it's important to make sure that the distinction between the executive and legislative branches is maintained. And I'm with her 100% on that. She could have said, I'm vetoing because it's one of the poorest bills I've ever seen, and she wouldn't have been wrong on that either.
But on the other hand, do you think this whole process took kind of long to get to the point that it's the purview of was the executive branch to decide? Am I not comprehending this completely? Does that suggest that she must find the fix for this situation, or is it that there's a fix out there, but this is not the way?
Well, the legislature could have fixed it, and Nelson's bill would have been the beginning of the fix, but Pito Terlahi, who is really carrying a lot of water for Jesse Blas, took the bill away from Nelson, and Nelson let him, and the other 13 senators that were present allowed it, and they all voted in favor of the bill. It boggles the mind to think that they all voted.
So, in other words, Uncle Bob, the governor gave just the right amount of attention, right amount of leadership at the right time, the right touch, so to speak.
What they should have done, they just should have passed the bill as introduced, but they didn't.
Oh, you mean the governor should have advised them that we should just pass it, or?
No, the governor should not have advised them what to do with a bill that's on the floor of the legislature. Was not her role. But the senators that were there should have just passed Nelson's bill and sent it to the governor, and I have no doubt that she would have signed it.
Okay. So all the right moves so far for Governor Leon Guerrero.
Yeah, Governor Leon Guerrero did it right this time.
All right, awesome. All right, Uncle Bob, thanks a lot for that insight. I'll listen for what's left of the program.
Okay, nice talking to you, another Joe. And now we got a break coming up. Carl, I got that. We're going to be heading down the home stretch. You and I will head down the home stretch together. So I'll see you at Churchill Downs, Carl.
We understand what matters to you because at Docomo Pacific, we're a family too. With the Now Family program, mom, dad, and kids stay connected on the latest devices the whole family can enjoy. For just $155 a month, get 3 lines with 30 gigs of 4G LTE data each, and endless use of your favorite apps without affecting your monthly data bucket. Add more, get more, save more. Docomo Pacific, better together. Some conditions apply.
People come to Chili's for a million reasons. For happy hour, date night, birthdays, or just because it's Tuesday. But if you ask us what brings people into our restaurants time and time again, is that Chili's moment. You know the one. When you eat so much you want to fall asleep at the table, or when you meet up with good friends and it turns into a party. At Chili's, moments like these matter, and we want to make more of them. So there may be a million reasons to Chili's, but all you really need is one. Chili's, savor the moment in our new location in the Tumon Sands Plaza, 2nd floor.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Well, here we are, Louisville, Kentucky, Carl, in the stands of Churchill Downs, where the Kentucky Derby is run every year. You just saw the jockeys shoo the horses into the starting gate, and you heard the call to the post. So other than predicting who will win the race, what else can you tell me?
Yeah, I was just chuckling at your description of Dan Ho's opinion piece, which made sense. And it's ironic, Stephen King is getting cannibalized. He's a leftist. He's getting consumed by the left for his comments. And we're seeing more and more of that. The lady that wrote the, what is this, that wizard
Harry Potter, yeah.
Harry Potter, yeah. She made some politically incorrect comment involving transgenderism, and she was just cannibalized by the left. And now we see this, it just, I just chuckle at it because you see what is happening. They're becoming victims of the world that they helped create, Stephen King and that author, of the Harry Potter series. And there's more and more of them. And I think even people on the left are getting a little burned out from this. But if we really, really, really want to have a social justice for these kind of matters, and we're going to take it to the logical or illogical end, then we need to base all awards, especially major awards like Academy Awards, on the U.S. demographics. I looked up the U.S. demographics based on the 2010 census, and it's changed by now, but, at that time it was a white 72.4, black 12.6, Hispanic or Latino, which I didn't know there was a difference between the two, was 16.3, Asian 4.8, and this is how they should break down all those major awards.
The only problem there, Carl, is that if you're in the postmodern era, a neo-Marxist, an arch-lefty, you don't zero in on facts. In order for properly to discuss that, we would have to know the ethnicity and the history of the people that developed that data. And unless those who developed the data were properly diverse, then we can't trust the data.
Yeah. And with the rules of intersectionality, if they've got other identity points, such as, being transgender or gay or, various other identity groups, that actually bumps them up a few notches. So this could get, very complicated.
Exactly.
I was kind of hurt looking at the list because I'm way down the list. I mean, down at the bottom is 2 or more races or ethnicities, and that was only 2.9%. That's me, 2 or more. And other, the category other even beats 2 or more. Other is like 6.2%. So, I was really quite hurt when I read that. That I find that very unfair. That they put me and my 2 or more kinsmen down at the bottom there. That's really terrible.
I think what you need to do, Carl, is wherever you go and whatever you're doing, keep mumbling this. Our strength is our diversity. Our strength is our diversity. And if you're ever introduced to somebody and saying, how do you do, or pleased to meet you, or it's nice to know you, when you shake hands, say, our strength is our diversity. That may be your salvation.
Yeah, I'm going to start doing that. That may be my mantra when I get up in the morning, as I'm shaving and looking in the mirror. I'll just keep saying that to myself and having a really intense look on my face, as I'm shaving and brushing my teeth, And that'll kind of set the tone for the day.
I think it would. And then, of course, I hope that you heard Tom Poole's call about how tough it is to be tall.
Yeah, I did hear that. Yeah, and that is, that's another kind of thing going on. That we tall people, they don't make these small cars for us. We have to kind of hunch over
and nobody cares. We're so marginalized. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even as far as buying clothes, there are times when I have a hard time buying trousers and shirts that fit properly, and shoes are a huge problem because I wear a size 14 shoe, and most shoe stores think that 11 is big feet, So
yeah, that's true. And if we applied the same rules, using demographics to fill job positions and give major awards locally, I mean, we could do the same thing. I mean, Chamorros, based on, I think this is 2015 estimates, based on the Wikipedia article, Guam article, Chamorros are 37.3%, Filipinos 26.3%, white people, last time I checked, that's you, Bob.
Yeah.
That's 7.1%. Chukis, you just barely edged out Chukis. Chukis at 7%. Koreans 2.2. So this has real possibilities. For social justice. I mean, if we really, really, really want to be fair, that's the way to do it. Is break down all job listings, all awards, everything by demographics, and that would may approach social justice.
Anything else just wouldn't be fair, would it?
No, it definitely wouldn't. Yeah, especially when they slot me in, the 2 or more at 2.9%. Wow, that hurts.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bob, thank you for allowing me to chime in and tout my particular victim status. I'm way down at the bottom, 2 or more. Really hurt.
Well, maybe in your next life, if you were a Hindu and believed in, I guess that wouldn't be very high on the list either. Aren't that many Hindus on Guam?
No, I think they're a very tiny minority. So, yeah, they've got a lot of grievance there.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, Bob, thank you.
Okay, Carl, good talking to you. And then Ishmael comes in and he says, on every ethnicity survey, you can only be Latino, Hispanic, or Pacific Islander Chamorro, not both. I feel they are discriminating against my kids, who are both Chamorro and Puerto Rican. Oh, wow, I don't blame you, Ishmael. Wow, let's talk to Senator Kelly Marsh Titanook. Maybe we can have some kind of a resolution drawn up to deal with that.
Orale.
Yeah, that's just not fair at all. Okay, So we've come to the conclusion of another exciting, enlightening, entertaining episode of Tall Tales. Have no fear. The real Joe Cruz and I will be back tomorrow, right, real Joe Cruz?
Have no fear.
All right.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
This is a Fox News alert.